Hello again. This is just a reminder that this is the fourth part of the I Own an Abandoned Motel series. A link to the playlist of the other videos will be in the description below. I Own an Abandoned Motel, and I'm not sure I'll be writing here again. Written by Wine Dark Sea, 1239. Well, he sure did a number on that porch, Martina said, squinting in the bright winter sun at the ruins in front of my cottage. I have to say I'm surprised. I've stayed around on full moons before and I've never seen it try to attack me. Piss me off? Sure. Seems to be its favorite pastime, but never like this. Some form of hazing perhaps, or maybe he was offended by the flat beer. Martina scoffed. He never touches the beer. Thinks he's fucking hilarious, remember? Only too well. Listen, I'm sure you had this thought before, but don't you think this thing is clearly a werewolf? Full moon, silver, vicious carnivore? She shrugged. Probably. What does it matter? Because he could be anyone outside the full moon, just walking around. What do you want to do? Hand him a bill? Serve him with a lawsuit? You're not at least a bit curious? Not at all. Have enough on my plate, and one day a lunar cycle is about all I can handle of this asshole. Now, come on, let's start cleaning this up. In my previous life, I had worked basic desk jobs, so the manual labor aspect of owning the property was painfully new to me. We spent hours hauling away the fragments of wood and metal destroyed by the beast into the dumpster behind the motel office. We buried the remains of the deer in a ditch at the end of the property that Martina had been using for that purpose for ages. Sometimes there were remains, she explained, and other times the entire animal would be taken. I was so winded and achy after we finally finished it that I wanted to just lay on the ground and never get up. For Martina, however, it was all in a day's work, even though, as far as I could tell, the woman subsisted entirely on cigarettes and hamburgers. She was examining the walls of my cottage with concern. Now what? Pretty deep claw marks. Lots of cracking. Seriously, you think there might be issues with the structural integrity of the cottage? Not sure. We'll have to see what the carpenter says. In the meantime, maybe you should check out the condition of Cottage 7 next door. If it's in decent shape, you might want to move in until we can get a professional's opinion. And before you give me that look, Cottage 7 is perfectly normal. No taxes owed on that one? Fine. Makes sense. Probably not great to get crushed in my sleep by a collapsing cottage. Not the way I'd want to go. Cottage 7 was the cottage closest to my own, and from the exterior appeared to be in good shape. Porch screen was a little warped, but otherwise intact. I stepped into the main room of the cottage. Furniture and decorations from the late 90s, but also seemed okay. I flipped the faucet on and off, checked the fridge, flushed the toilet, all in functioning order. After my uncle closed down the motel, there was minimal upkeep to the cottages, enough that they wouldn't fall into complete disrepair. I would have to do a good deep cleaning, but it could work. I sat down on one of the chairs at the small dining table and felt the rug underneath it dip. That's not a good sign. I got down, carefully removed the chair and the rug, and promptly groaned. The wooden floorboards were warped and clearly rotting. As I bent down to get a better look, I heard a faint scratching from inside. How's it going in there? I brought you a sandwich. Martina looked in and shook her head when she saw me on the floor. Excellent. I gestured to the rotting wood. This and a side of rodents. Add it to the list, I guess, she sighed. By the way, another scheduled payment today. She tossed me the notebook. Cottage 14. Ah, almost in the woods, that one. She pointed to the entry. Number 14. Lay down in the center of the room. Do not speak to them. Leave when they are gone. Can be satisfied at any time, either day or night. Payment schedule, every 3 months. Okay, my first reaction is that this doesn't sound too bad. Martina pursed her lips skeptically. It's going to be terrible then, isn't it? She nodded. The only good thing about this one is that you can do it either day or night. It's pitch black in there anyway. Do it during the day. Trust me. I know I don't have a good track record of things going to plan, but what am I in for? First of all, I don't know what these things are, so don't bother asking. There are a lot of them. Let's call them ghosts. Maybe that's the best fit. Who knows? As I said, it's dark in there and there's no furniture, so don't worry about bumping into anything. Just lay on the floor and wait. They're basically harmless. I think they just forgot what a human feels like. You'll see. It's awful, but manageable. Before you know it, they're gone and you can just go about your business. Great, I guess I should get it over with. Cottage 14 was set back against the edge of the property, facing a forest that was green and plush in the summer. Now, the branches that nearly engulfed the porch were wan and desolate. Certainly adds ambience. There was something about the structure that seemed sadder than the others. Perhaps it was the paint that had faded to a dull, filthy gray. The scrollwork of the gable trim appeared brittle and delicate, as though it would crumble before my eyes. In fact, the entire place had an air of impermanence, though it had been standing in this exact spot for a century. When I stepped on the porch, the whispers began. They came from inside, faint, yet almost excited. I took a deep breath and entered the cottage. Martina was right. It was pitch black, unnaturally so, like stepping into a velvet box. I could feel the floor under me, but that was the only tether for my senses. There was no indication of the windows, and with a stab of fear I noticed I could no longer see the door behind me. The only thing I could do was carefully lower myself to the floor, that physical action almost comforting in the nothingness. I pressed my hand against the wood, anchoring me to something earthly. It did not take the denizens of the cottage long to find me. I felt the hand clasp at my ankle tentatively, but saw nothing. I suppressed a gasp. More hands joined the first, firmly but not painfully squeezing my arms, shoulders, legs. The whispering gradually increased, but was still soft, barely louder than a gentle rustle of leaves. Just when the rhythm of hands on my limbs became almost relaxing, the hands started touching my face. Invisible, cold fingers combed themselves through my long hair, pressing their palms against my forehead, tracing my lips. One hand clamped itself over my mouth over and over, then doing the same to my nose, as if trying to understand the warmth of my breath. I couldn't count them, but they were many, all grasping at me like they had never seen a human made of flesh and bone. Amidst the whispering, there were words that I could detect here and there. Not English words, French perhaps? Yes. Je vous and maybe jeune. I do not speak French, but could catch the simple vocabulary. Hands began to push at my back. Hair took my arms, another pushed my legs from behind, and this time the whispers were right next to my ears. Levy, stand. Hands pushed at the soles of my shoes, raising me into nothingness. I felt clammy, almost numb at the loss of that last sensory connection. I opened my mouth to protest, but remembered the admonition of the notebook. All around me, shadowy forms took shape, delineated from the blackness by weak, white light that illuminated the figures like silhouette portraits. They were humans, but practically formless, bent and wraith-like. One stood taller in the center and began to speak to me in a cracking, parched voice, perhaps that of a woman, but I could not understand. It was French again, but spoke quickly and far beyond my extremely meager capabilities. I didn't dare speak to ask if there was any way she could parler Anglais. The leader placed its hand over my heart. She spoke again, a flurry of words I did not understand but carried the intensity of a warning. Then a phrase that sounded like, "Ne te laisse pas seul." Suddenly, the spirits around me withered in pain, the once pale light that had surrounded them intensifying, whipping upwards like flames. I was surrounded by screaming, human screaming, the screeching of hundreds of people. I could feel hot sparks against my skin, underneath my clothes, pricking, escalating into burning. Smoke filled my nostrils, my lungs, and gasping, I clawed at the air, reaching for the spirits who themselves were reaching beyond me. I fell, and there were no hands to catch me. My body hit the wood floor, and the spirits and their flames were gone. The darkness was just the ordinary darkness of a cottage shuttered against the daylight. The door and my escape outlined in the vibrant orange of early evening. I scrambled towards it, nearly tripping over my own feet, skin still flushed and hot. I flung the door open and let out a cry of relief as the cold freshness enveloped me. Martina was waiting, seated in the folding chair she used for fishing, wrapped in her favorite cat blanket. I know I'm beginning to sound like a broken record, but what the fuck? I said breathlessly. Martina stood, wrapping her blanket around her shoulders, and surveyed my appearance. I'm guessing your experience was unusual. Just a bit. Do you by any chance speak French? She glared at me. Okay, I had to ask. I know the notebook mentions not speaking, but you never said I'd be spoken to. Because they've never spoken to me. I lay there, they squeeze my hands and my feet in total darkness, and that's about it. Some experiences are longer than others, but that's the only variation. You've never seen them then? Martina blanched. They showed themselves to you? I nodded, and spoke to me, in French. I don't think it was necessarily hostile, but there was anger there, misery. The only thing I could catch sounded like, "Don't let yourself be alone." And then it was as though they all were set on fire, and I too felt the flames, the smoke. Martina folded her arms as if beset by a sudden chill. Something has changed around here, and I don't like it one bit. She narrowed her eyes against the sun that had just dipped below the horizon. It felt like I was in there for no longer than 10 minutes, but from the look of the sky, I guess it's been hours, she finished, nodding. That's why I like to get in there, get it over with while it's still day. Come on, we should probably grab a couple of crowbars and see what kind of mice colony we have under the floor in Cottage 7. After my visits there, she gestured disapprovingly to the cottage I had just left. I typically enjoy whacking things with tools, just good, honest work. Keep your mind off things. You're right, that does sound amazing right about now. We walked back towards the river in Cottage 7, happy to leave the image of the burning spirits behind me. I've never been so grateful for the frosted crunch of winter grass under my boots, for the faint stinging of my lips chapped by the cold breeze, and the most precious thing of all, the air in my lungs, that magic so desired by the dead. Martina, have you ever thought about burning the place down? She laughed. Not my place to burn down, but I've had my fantasies. The clouds are rapidly darkening from mauve to the steel of night. I tried to envision everything around me in flames, crumbling into ash. Should I do it? I asked. Do you want to? No, I don't think I do. Good? Why? Listen, Nora, I've had a lot of time to think about this, and while I still have no idea what these things are or who put them here, I am almost certain that this place, our taxes, our constant payments for their appeasement, all these things bind them to this place. If it were gone, She trailed off. Yeah, I wouldn't want to know either. Martina had left a pile of tools in front of Cottage 7. I grabbed a sledgehammer. Fine weapon of choice. Start tapping in the rotting bits of wood, then I'll come in with the pry bar and grab the nails. We carefully moved the table and chairs out of the way. I rolled up the worn rug. There were a lot more rotting boards than I had noticed earlier that day. The scratching sounds underneath the floor had intensified. "Mice always making a racket at night," Martina muttered. "Shall I?" I waved the hammer. "Go ahead. Just start with a firm but careful tap. That's probably all you'll need." I obeyed. The wood crumbled all too easily. The scratching stopped. I brushed away the decaying wood and my fingers brushed against something solid and dry. I recoiled in disgust. "We might have a dead one," I grimaced. I took out my phone and put on the flashlight to get a better view. My heart leapt into my throat. It's... I pointed with a trembling finger. "Well, I'll be damned," Martina said as she bent down. She cleared away the remainder of the dust. It was a human hand, desiccated and curled, connecting to the rest of an arm that was almost skeletal, covered with a thin layer of skin and dried sinew. What in heaven's name is a human body doing under the floorboards? "It looks like it's been here a while." Martina worked quickly, knocking out the boards surrounding the rest of the corpse. It was the body of a man, by the looks of it, rags of clothing sticking to its almost entirely mummified remains. The face appeared contorted but remarkably preserved, sunken eyes staring at us accusingly, the remains of lips still tightly covering the mouth. It must have been buried here when the cottages were built about 100 years ago. As far as I know, these floors have never been replaced. "Maybe there's some form of identification on him?" I asked. At least part of what appeared to be trousers seemed intact. I reached towards the pocket, thinking that there could be a wallet or some other clue. With a cracking crunch, the bony arm shot forward and clasped my shoulder with an awful strength, pulling both me and itself upright with a sickening hiss. The eyes bored into me, dead and corpse-like, yet somehow alive. It began to open its mouth with an appalling click. I tore at its grip, twisting my face as far away as I could, using my entire weight to knock it off balance, but to no avail. Martina brought her pry bar down on its side, shouting and cursing. The thing let out an angry moan and threw me aside like a rag doll. My body made contact with the table, flipping it over and on top of me. For a moment, I blacked out, exploding with pain. My vision returned to me and I saw the thing clutch Martina and lift her to its mouth with a frenzied shriek, tearing into her throat. With all my might, I pushed the table aside, head spinning, weeping, crying Martina's name. She slacked in its grip, and in an instant the thing bounded out the door of the cottage and into the night. I managed to crawl out of the wreckage of the furniture. Martina lay silent on the floor, eyes staring ahead, skin a deathly gray, lifeless. "No, no," I whispered. I tried to bring my shaking fingers to her neck to check for a pulse, but I did not find any skin intact. I screamed as I cradled her to me. I screamed long and hard enough for every damned creature, every bloodthirsty revenant to hear.